Okay, guys, welcome back to the Weekly Order. Today we're joined by Ryan Gibbons. He actually goes back to school with Mike and Fray.
Yeah. We went to school with Ryan. For some reason, we always knew that he was going to make it as well.
Did we?
It was one of those things, dude. In cycling,
Were you cycling in school already?
Yeah.
Mike knew that you were going to make it, I guess.
yeah, dude. No, it was crazy. It's crazy, bro.
Okay, well, let's give him the chance to introduce himself, tell everyone who he is, what he does. Yeah, the floor's yours.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, Ryan Gibbons, professional cyclist for NCT Pro Cycling. Been professional this is going on my 5th year. Currently the SA champ. This year was supposed to do the Tour de France and the Olympics. So obviously Olympics isn't happening, but yeah, Tour de France has been postponed, so hopefully that goes on. Making a living and living the dream.
Yeah, that's brilliant, bro. So with the Olympics being postponed, was that like a big knock? Hey, I can imagine.
It is a knock. I mean, I think it's any athlete's dream to do Olympics. As a cyclist, it's not really, like on the forefront.
Yeah.
You think of Olympics, you think of swimming, athletics.
Yeah.
But still, it would have been a nice notch on the belt.
What would it have entailed for cycling in the Olympics?
It's a one-day event, so it would be a 250k race. Just once off, kind of 180 starters. First 3 people get the medals. So it's quite a lot of pressure, build up. It's not like a Tour de France where you've got 21 chances, 21 stages.
Yeah.
It's just once off. But still, it's the Olympics.
And you'd represent South Africa, obviously.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, excuse my ignorance here, but I didn't realize that they had that type of cycling. I always thought it was that like indoor cycling, that like round.
That lap thing.
I
Yeah.
always thought that was like the more Olympic cycling event.
It was, and 100% that's how it started. But yeah, the last, I think, 4 or 5 editions, they've had a road race as well.
I think to just put it out there though, me, Fraser and Mike have no idea about cycling basically.
I did the 94.7.
On a tandem.
And a tandem with Tim.
Yeah.
What did it take you guys? 14 hours.
4 hours. What took me? Tim just sat there.
But I think there's a lot more that goes into cycling, especially if you start watching it a bit, bro. It really, you can see how it's actually like, you think it's an individual sport, right? When you just look at it on the TV and you've never seen it, you think everyone's just on their own bicycle.
Yeah.
When I found out how much goes into it, how they try get the one person to I don't know what you'd call it, but they all surround him so that he doesn't have to cycle that hard, I'm guessing,
Yeah, so how does it work?
How does it work?
Yeah.
That's what I'm basically asking.
So in road cycling, you're kind of split into 2 kind of categories. You're either a climber or a sprinter. So the climbers are the guys who are winning the Tour de France. They can ride up a mountain faster than anyone else. They're quite skinny, lean guys. And then you have your sprinters who are a little bit heavy set. So as a cyclist, I'm quite a bigger guy.
Okay.
And so what suits me would be the days that kind of finish on a flat road where there's a group of 100, 200 guys together, and it's like it's called a mass sprint.
Okay.
So that's where, team efforts help guys sit in front of you, and you're riding their slipstream. They position you, they get you to as close to the finish line in as far forward position as possible, and then it's up to you. There's fights, there's jostling, there's things like that. There's team tactics. Some guy might think, the guy I'm riding for today in my team is actually not that good, so I'm going to try and ride away from him. Or it's always like there's infighting. But yeah, it's pretty much cut into 2 categories: the sprinters and the climbers. So in a Tour de France, it's made up of 21 stages. 10 of those would be for the sprinters, and 11 would be for the climbers. And yeah, it's so the climbers lift through the sprint stages, the sprinters lift through the climbing stages. I've still got to carry my fat ass up a mountain, but those won't be the days that I'm going to try and win. It would be
Would you guys have elected someone to win out of your team?
Correct.
And so what if you fuck this guy, I'm better than him?
I feel like it's sort of like Formula 1 though. Have you seen his
politics?
Yeah, like
in
in Formula 1 as well.
Exactly. It comes down to politics, and even, I might be a sprinter, there might be another sprinter in my team, but today they're like, we're going to ride for that sprinter. And I'm thinking about why, I'm faster than this guy, I'm stronger than this guy, I'm going to sacrifice myself.
That must be tough to deal with, eh?
Yeah, because it's sort of like you've done this whole competition, but there's no sort of reward for you because 100%. You didn't win the fucking thing.
Yeah.
That guy's on the podium, that guy gets the endorsement deals, that guy gets the contract extension. And, he can maybe write you in, and maybe his agent can speak to the team and be like, this guy actually likes having Ryan on the team to support him. But then you're basically a bitch,
So how's that decision made then? For who is it the best overall, or?
So what happens is when we have team selection, so we've got a team of 29 riders, and every race we go to, there'll be between 7 and 8 riders. So the Tour de France, every team has 8 riders. So of the 29 rider squad, our team, our coaches, our directors, they'll kind of assess based on previous race results in the last 3 months, your training files, to see kind of who they reckon is the fittest, the strongest, the most adequately suited. And then on the day, the director will kind of in the morning, you'll have a meeting on the team bus, and they'll say, today we're riding for this guy. And 99% of the time, not everyone agrees with it, but it's your job and you're paid to do it.
But then if you're riding for that guy and he wins, then you're going to have to continue riding for that guy through the stages, because obviously you want him to win the overall Tour de France.
Correct.
So how do you win the overall Tour de France though? You have to win the most stages.
So that's where it actually doesn't. It's quite complicated cycling. Think of it like golf. So think about in a championship there's 4 days. Yeah. And it's who accumulatively shoots the lowest score. It's the same in cycling with time. So I might, win day 1 in golf and shoot a 68, and you might shoot a 70, but the next day I shoot a 78, and you again shoot a 70. So even though, I won the first day, ultimately...
your time is still cumulatively better.
Cumulative time. So in the Tour de France, you often see a guy can win the Tour de France without even winning a single stage. He might just be second.
Yeah, like
due to inconsistent guys, I guess.
That's it.
But that's surely, that makes sense though. It
does make sense,
because overall you've been the quickest.
Yeah. But I mean, it is hard because, you get guys, sprinters, for example, who can win 5 stages of the Tour de France and then finish 150th overall. And you kind of think, how does this work? So it is quite technical. When you're in it, you understand it. But yeah, I think golf, it's similar in golf.
Because I've always wondered, because you'll always see when you watch the Tour de France, bro, you'll see that this guy has won, but then you see where he finished in the race, and sometimes he's 5th or 6th for that stage, and you're sitting there, and you're like, what the hell is going on, bro?
That goes into it.
No, I can tell you that, just by looking.
Just lines up and you fucking win each race of the...
But one thing I can tell you is that the cycling, fans, the fans for cycling they are fucking crazy fans, bro. The way that they go and line up on the roads just to watch, bro, and when you see them watching a cycling race on TV, on Supersport or something.
Bloody close to those cyclists.
Dude, they fucking love it, bro. I think it's a cool sport to be in where, the fans actually encourage you and make you feel the whole time you need to push and go.
That's I think the beauty of it, where in South Africa you think of cycling and you think of it's a social sport. I can do it. My parents do it. I can ride the 94.7. You don't see it as a professional sport. Where in Europe it's a professional sport.
It's massive.
In Belgium it's the second biggest sport behind football.
That's crazy.
And on a stage of a Tour de France or one day big races called Paris-Roubaix, where you ride from Paris to Roubaix. It's on cobblestones. There'll be 3 million spectators. Now think of a football game. You'll get a 90,000 capacity stadium, maybe, and then your viewers at TV, but there'll be millions of people on the road.
Shit, and because obviously now you say if you do the 94.7, because of your training and stuff, that must be a breeze for you. There must be no struggle at all.
Yeah, so the 94.7 is obviously a South African, I'd say smaller competition.
Yeah, it's
for people who don't know. Yeah.
Well, on a daily basis, what are you averaging Ks wise on a normal training day?
Normal training day, I look at it, I break it up into weeks. So I'm trying to per week get between 800 to 1,000 Ks a week.
That's to Cape Town, bro, in a week.
And then 20 to 30 hours. Some weeks I've done 2,000 Ks in a week. It all depends on that. So you're averaging on a training ride 150 Ks. Obviously, that would take in training. You're not racing the whole time. You're not pushing yourself too hard. So maybe about 5 hours. But in a race, you can do 200 Ks in 4 hours. But yeah, you're spending a lot of hours on that saddle.
That's the thing. Also, is cycling not quite monotonous? It's sort of the same thing. You've got to be here for 5 fucking hours.
We spoke about this though before he even got you, and you're like, I could never fucking do that same cradle over and over again. But then I said to you, remember, he lives in Italy, bro. The scenery he probably drives past probably fucking hard.
It definitely helps, riding along the coastline, riding in the mountains. It's great. And, the narrow roads and even just, the history and getting to be in Europe. It does help a lot. But, cycling is monotonous. And if I think, no, I've got to go and do 5 hours, 5 laps around the cradle, it's going to kill me. And even watching cycling, I'm a cyclist, but I would never watch cycling. It's boring. You sit there for 5 hours and it's only exciting in the last 5 minutes.
That helicopter just flying over.
And they're showing chateaus and villas and, that's not interesting. I commend people who love it, but I would never watch cycling.
I'd sit there and watch that fucking Tour de France from
start. But I find it quite calming, if you have nothing else to watch and you're not really watching the TV as intensely, it's nice to put on the background golf. You don't have to watch every shot in golf. You can just relax.
I'll take some garden bowls on the TV.
She's a marble racing or something.
Just 2 people kicking a ball at each other. Oh, go ape shit.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
When you are actually in a race, do you have the team speaking to you in a thing in your ear?
Yeah, so we've got race radios. So it's a little radio that goes in your back, and you've got an earpiece going into your ear. And it's also got a little microphone, and that's through everyone. All the riders in your team, as well as you've got 2 team cars following with a race director who's got kind of GPS files and TV, so you can see what's going on.
That's crazy.
And kind of giving you updates. Maybe there's a breakaway, so that's when a few riders ride away from the peloton. All technical terms, and they'll tell you, listen, guys, they're 2 kilometers in front of you. You've got 50 Ks to go. If you guys want to catch them, you've got to try and average 4 k's an hour quicker than them.
So they're allowed to say that kind of stuff as well, eh? Like,
Yeah,
these
they
blokes are this
complete-
fast.
I guess that's fucking important because I mean to know how far the guy's ahead.
But if
like,
you think about it in golf, they hardly ever know. Like, let's say I've seen some golf like games on the final day, they won't even know if the guy 3 or 4 holes ahead of them what score they're on.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's sort of like that not knowing should you push
but I
harder
guess
or
for
not.
golf, it's sort of like, oh, he's doing this, just play better. For cycling, it's sort of like, okay, tactical. They are this far away. You've got to adjust your speed by this amount.
No, it is
It's not
interesting.
just
I was
like,
just wondering if you
hey,
could say it
cycle
or not.
faster, you're
Yeah,
behind the guys.
because it's almost like giving you a tip off. Like, listen, you got to go faster.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah,
You know?
it's interesting, and I mean, you're cycling for fuck long time. What's the situation with pissing and shitting?
So some guys can do it while they ride. Not shitting, obviously.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
pissing. So I generally piss off the bike. And, you try and avoid cameras and fans and spectators and all kids, but you're not always going to.
Yeah.
You just hope you're not that kid standing on the side of the road getting pissed on. But generally, like, if you're doing a 5-hour day, it's humanly impossible to ride as hard as you can for 5 hours. So you go through phases in the race where kind of there's that general consensus, guys, we're going to tap off now. You need to stop and take off a rain jacket. I'm going to go back to the car and get some bottles. I'm going to stop and piss here.
Okay.
So there are, in the longer races, periods. Like a 94.7, there's no time because it's a 2-hour race, 2.5-hour race.
Yeah.
Or
So
4
how quick do you do it? What's your best time? Yeah.
I've done 94.7, I think 3 times. Last time I did it was 2014, and I think I did 2:10. I think I was third.
That's
2:10,
crazy.
I was only double that.
Yeah, you're almost there. just behind.
Just got to get a few seconds off there, bro. You're there.
Yeah, just cut it off, bro. If got Tim to cycle, we would have been.
Yeah, it's just I don't think Tim's nose was very aerodynamic.
I love how we insult him.
Time on this podcast, it become a trend, bro.
You must comment on the video.
Yeah, but anyway, I wanted to ask, what's the highest accolade for like cycling? Is it the Tour de France or the Olympics? Because now I'm quite confused thinking about it.
So Olympics, because it's every 4 years, and it's the Olympics. Obviously, that's quite a big deal. But I think for pure cyclists, because cycling hasn't been in the Olympics for that long, it doesn't carry that much weight. Cycling in Europe's been going on for 150 years. So the Tour de France is the pinnacle of the sport. If you ask anyone about cycling who doesn't know anything, they'll say Tour de France.
Yeah, that's probably what everyone knows.
So you cycled the Tour de France before?
No. So I was
supposed to be your first.
Yeah, I was supposed to do it last year, the year before, but injuries and like visa problems have
But
gotten away.
that's fucking crazy.
That's
you
heartbreaking,
making the Tour de France. I mean, that's
Yeah.
incredible. So how many cyclists did you say it is?
Who do the Tour de France?
Yeah.
So there's 200 starters from 22 different teams, and then every team has 8 riders. So maybe that's
How did the teams get elected for the Tour de France? Is it all based on time trials? Or?
No. So cycling is very similar to professional football, where you've got like the Premier League, you've got your Champions League or whatever. So not Champions League, but the second division.
Yeah, it's called the Champions League. It is quite confusing, yeah.
So it's the same in cycling. So you've got your World Tour teams, and there are 18 of us, and then you've got your pro Conti teams, professional Conti teams, and there's about 20 of them, and then you get continental level. So it ranks down. And all the World Tour teams get automatic qualification.
Okay.
So there's 18 of us, and then the 4 remaining spots are wildcard teams given to the highest ranked, like the best of the rest kind of thing. And that's generally French and Belgian teams. So the chances of doing the Tour de France if you're not in a World Tour team is very, very unlikely.
Yeah, and getting into these teams? How do you do that?
It's hard. It's not like any other sport. Cricket and rugby, you go through schoolboy cricket and rugby, and then there's academies and you get scouted.
Trials, yeah.
And there's like almost a program and there's a step to follow. With cycling, it isn't like that.
Yeah.
I raced in South Africa as a youngster. I won a lot of races. It meant nothing. No one cared. No one knew who I was. I went to Europe. I got my head kicked in. Again, you just got to keep persevering, keep pushing, get noticed by an agent or get noticed by a team, or it's being right place, right time, consistently winning, and then also just not giving up.
But it must be quite volatile then being in a team, because if for some reason you become worse at cycling, whether it be an injury or anything, and you're no longer performing,
then you're gone.
You got
That's crazy, bro. Yeah.
It is very cutthroat. So that's also the thing. People can retire, forced retirement because they're just not getting contracts at 23. So the average age of a cyclist is around 30. Most of them, as a cyclist, because it's not really hard impact. If you have crashes and that can obviously affect you, but you can ride until you're probably 40 years old. Yeah. Most don't. Most retire earlier because also it's a hard life for your family. You're on the road the whole time and. It's not an easy life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot of pressure the whole time, and you can't rest on your laurels. So currently I'm South African champ, so just naturally that should almost mean that I'm entitled to a contract next year. but I might be 26 and retired then.
You don't know.
If I don't achieve again. So
that's hectic, because that's sort of
that's
like
scary. That uncertainty will
own,
just give you
you
anxiety.
need to make sure that you are better.
That's it.
There's no like you got this security in a team. You've got to keep upping yourself no
Yeah.
matter what.
100%.
And yes, that's crazy. And I had just it's a bit of a weird question, but after my 94.7 with Tim, we both had numdick, like you cannot believe, bro.
Numdick, bro.
Because of the saddle.
Because of
I
South
thought you'd have like numb gooch or something though.
that was numb everything down there. But honestly, dude, it was for like 12 hours, and on Google
No, I
it
can
said like
imagine.
if it was longer, we would have had to go to hospital.
Jeez,
I'm
that's-
assuming your balls and dick get used to that.
It's just conditioning, just like anything, if you like if I go and try and lift weights tomorrow, the next day I'm gonna feel like shit.
Yeah.
But if you do it regularly, you just get used to it. I also put methylated spirits on my ass to make it nice.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
I was gonna say, me too, right?
No, but I think I've had 2 occasions where I did the Giro d'Italia, so that's like the Tour de France in Italy. It's a 21-day race through Italy. And it was a 7-hour day, 2 back-to-back 7-hour days, 250 odd Ks in the rain, just pure pain. And you just piss blood and you have no feeling.
What? So the Tour de France, how many Ks are you overall cycling roundabout?
It's approximately 4,000 kilometers.
Jeez,
Bro,
I could
so-
fuck that, bro.
I mean, you guys are professionals and stuff, but obviously you struggle tremendously as well. I
Yeah,
mean, there must be, if you've obviously you've done the other races, not necessarily the Tour de France, you must have been in situations where you're like, fuck, this is hell on earth.
I can honestly say, so I do about 80 professional race days a year, and a quarter of them, so at least 20, my heart rate's sitting at 200. I'm just feeling pain. I'm bleeding somewhere because I've crashed or a car's hit me or something's happened. And I just say, why am I doing this? At the end of this race, I'm packing it in and I'm stopping, because no human should have to endure this.
But that's also why the age to retire is also quite low as well, because it's quite taxing on the body.
Yeah.
It's very taxing on the
That
body.
is,
But
must
that-
be hellish.
That does lead me to one of the questions I wanted to ask. What's your resting heart rate?
So, I've got it down to 35.
Holy shit, bro.
Yeah.
I think mine's 80.
But right now, I'd say probably between 42 and 46. Then I know
That is ridiculous,
Yeah,
bro.
Yeah.
And do you think getting your heart rate down, this is tips for me and Freya probably, how do you get your heart rate down, your resting heart rate? It's just like intense cardiovascular
Fitness.
exercise.
It is, and I think a big part of it, do the intense stuff and like the high intensity training, but also just a long endurance. And it's almost, that's that monotonous, boring part of it, where you got to go out and
Yeah.
climb on a bike and do 6 hours.
It's all
and,
boring to
and
me,
it's, it is boring.
35, bro. I'm fucking
Yeah,
shocked,
that is
bro.
insane, dude.
Yeah.
But that's another question that I was going to ask. Like your training routine, is it literally just cycling, or is there an element of like
Just other
your high
endurance,
intensity
yeah.
training or like weight training or things like that? What is
It depends on the time of the year. So kind of in my off season, so like November, December, when there aren't really races anywhere in the world, I do a lot of gym work. So 3 times a week, predominantly leg stuff. So leg press,
Yeah.
squats, lunges, that sort of thing. But in season, I go to gym once or twice a week, but not heavy weights. I try and do a bit of explosive stuff. So kind of, the technique is all explosive, core work. And then a lot of double sessions where I'm just riding. So in the morning, I'll do maybe a 4-hour ride where I'm just, cruising. And then in the afternoon, I'll do an hour with certain interval training. So like, a minute hard, 30 seconds recovery, a minute hard, or 20 minutes as hard as I can. I think just, variations of that. But yeah, it's very structured and kind of in season. Every day for me is planned from when I wake up to when I go to bed. And it's all got to be recorded.
Oh,
I
they
sleep-
monitor you as well.
Oh, absolutely. So
But
you're
the teams are
team
monitoring.
and the cycling union. So you're on a whereabouts program for doping, so for drugs. So every single night I got to log in where I'm going to sleep so that they can come and test me.
No way.
so they've clamped down hard?
Oh, super hard. Since the Lance Armstrong days.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting topic that I almost forgot about, is the doping.
The doping,
thing.
it's massive. So I think this year alone I've been tested 6 times, and I rock up at my house at 6 in the morning, and there'll be a doctor there and a
So it's completely random.
completely random. So you got to fill that in, and then obviously the team has to be aware of that. You have to sleep with like Garmin wearables so that they can monitor what your heart rate is, what time you went to bed, what time you woke up. You have to
What
weigh
is the
yourself.
purpose of that?
I think it's just to ensure that you are recovering, and like they can monitor your heart rate, so they can say, listen, you slept last night and your average heart rate for the night was 42. Tonight
It was weird. Like someone's watching you sleep.
100%.
So like if there's
Right,
a difference,
there's a
then
difference.
obviously you've done
You're
something.
getting sick, or maybe you're doing drugs or something like that. They also want to monitor what you eat, and it's just you're ultimately an investment. We're getting paid
crazy, yeah.
salaries,
Holy
and
shit, bro.
they want to ensure that they're getting rewards and they're going to get returns. So if you're out partying until 3 a.m. every night, we're not going to keep you. So it's a very strict lifestyle, and it's hard on families, it's hard on relationships and friends,
but rewarding though as well. I think
but rewarding. I mean, I'm living the dream, and hopefully I can retire after cycling.
Yeah,
that's
so
good,
not have
sure.
to do anything. What is your future now with cycling? Obviously, you're going to do the Tour de France and stuff.
So, I mean, in my mind, I always said early 30s. It depends if I'm enjoying it, depends if I get contracts. And then I'm really going to look forward to the day I get to go to Micah and buy some hooks and rack it. And then rack those wheels up, because I think once I do retire, I don't think I'd want to ride a bike anymore.
Jeez, like that's crazy.
Not
Yeah.
even
That's
fun.
weird.
Not
though.
even fun. Doing it as a career, I love my bike and I love everything about it, but it takes the pleasure away. And, and waking up
interesting.
early and just sitting
Yeah.
up there, it's not for me.
So is it worth it? I mean, I always say this with everyone because
Yeah.
I fucking just rugby, for example. I dreaded every single practice I went to. Sometimes I would enjoy the match when I got fit,
Yeah.
but otherwise I fucking hated it, bro, because it's shit. Like, I mean, imagine waking up at 5 o'clock and being like, I've got to go ride till fucking 12 p.m. now.
But that's the thing. Like, we obviously had this conversation off camera as well beforehand. I would take that any day over going into the office and sitting there
9 to 5, but
What
you
a
said
fuck,
you
bro.
wouldn't. You said you'd rather go 9
I'll
to
sit there,
5.
smash the legal industry. Sit on my comfy ass chair.
That's I don't know.
I think it's definitely worth it. And again, I'm chasing my dream. I'm riding a bike, and when I look back in South Africa, and I think, currently there are 5 professional South African cyclists, and they're, maybe 300-400 youngsters who would kill to be in my position. So I've got to appreciate that. And I'm also competitive. So when I get into a race, it's a different mindset. I don't think about the last 7 days. I spend 7 hours on the bike each day. I think about, I want to win.
That's good.
And that fuels me.
I think that's what you got to do. Yeah. And then with regards to eating, I've heard that like when you're busy doing a race, you burn so many calories that night you just have to like shove food down your throat.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I think on a typical stage, you're going to burn between, it sounds a lot, but it's legit. It's between 5,000 to 7,000 calories.
Jeez.
And you got to replenish. So you're eating a lot. We've got chefs who follow us and they come to the races with us. And you eat as much as you can. I mean, a typical morning breakfast before a stage of a Tour de France stage, you'd have a bowl of oats with granola and fruit, bananas. You'd have an omelette, 3-egg omelette, and then, a bowl of rice or pasta.
That's crazy.
And that's just in the morning.
And during the race, because obviously you have to keep topping up with, I don't know, with the
Herbalife.
94.7
bars.
94.7 we had those, you have the goos and all sorts of that shit.
Yeah, so we've got like nutrition sponsors, and they give us energy gels, so goos and bars, as well as, the race mix, so the drink you drink, the electrolytes, and there's a lot of carbs in there. And then also we've got soigneurs, they're called carers. They kind of, massage us and they prepare us like little sandwiches and kind of rice cakes and that sort of thing to eat while we ride. That's easy to digest and you're not too kind of heavy.
And then do you guys sleep in buses and stuff during these stages, or do you guys sleep in like hotels?
No. So we stay in hotels. So every team's got multiple team buses, but at every race there'll be a team bus, and that's a very luxurious bus. It's like being in a first class flight. You've got everyone's got their own seats, and you've got a place to charge your phone, your laptop, and headphones, and you've got a kitchen in the buses and bathrooms and showers and that sort of thing. So we travel, from the hotel to the start of the race, and then when you finish the race, you shower and you eat in the bus while you travel to your next hotel. But generally the race organizers look after us really, really well with nice luxurious
You
hotels.
must sleep like a damn baby every single night.
You must be
honestly-
tired,
Honestly, like you must exhaust yourself like every single day. That's by the time you get to bed, you just pass out.
Yeah, so what time do you end up going to sleep and then waking up and in things like these?
So it's very different. Like in South Africa, if you think of the cycling culture, the guys wake up early. You've got to go before work or before traffic or the heat of the day. In Europe, the races only start at about 12. So if you're doing a 5-6 hour day, you start at 12, you finish at 6 o'clock in the evening. You go to the bus. Maybe you've got prize giving or you've got to do dope control, whether you've got to piss in a cup, media interviews, that sort of thing. You get back on the bus, you shower. And then sometimes, the hotel's only 5 Ks away. Sometimes it's 200 Ks away. I mean, last year in the Giro d'Italia, we were in Sicily and we had to take a ferry to get back to mainland Italy. And I think we got back to the hotel at like 11 o'clock at night. So it differs.
It must be like a bed now.
No. But generally 11 o'clock is generally bedtime. But you can sleep until like 8. That's the perks of
That's
being
interesting. I thought it was all
Wake up
early
early,
start sort of vibe.
Yeah.
But it does make sense though, because remember the sun sets so much later in Europe.
Yeah.
So obviously they can start things later, which obviously helps.
Yeah,
it does.
makes so much sense that waking up early is just cuck, bro. It's
Yeah.
panic stations.
Now the Europeans are onto something there because after being in South Africa now for a while and having to wake up early to ride before that curfew. No,
That's
We got curfews. So
it's for the birds. Yeah.
And then with the doping, is it more intense when there's actually a race on? So that they test you a lot more while you part of, like, let's say, the Tour de France or
But they
Giro
test you
d'Italia.
off-season as well.
They do. So it's called in competition and out of competition testing. So out of competition testing, I'll get probably tested between 10 to 20 times a year, whether I rock up at my house or rock up at a hotel or something like that. They've even tested me at an airport before.
Jeez,
I was flying to Dubai and they rocked up
Tested you
there
in an airport.
in an airport bathroom. That would generally be blood and urine. But in competition,
Blood and urine.
blood and urine.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is it the
Fuck.
same type of testing? Is it just pissing in the cup? Or, but
It's
obviously,
blood and urine. It's a controlled environment, because you've got to pour it into like an A sample glass, a B sample glass. You've got to seal it up.
I don't think an
that it has
airport
no-
bathroom is a controlled environment.
No, I agree. with
Do they
that.
literally just take you to the bathroom in the airport and say,
Someone
listen, we're
walks
going to do
into
a
a
test
stall
now?
and you've got a needle in your thing. Like,
So
this is
some
not
ran-
drugs. This is
some random dude will like just come
Surprise.
up to you and be like, yeah.
They show accreditation, so they show their name and they show a letter that they've been summoned by the kind of the FIFA of cycling that we're here to test you. And if you decline, that's a strike next to your name, and 2 of those and you're banned.
Jeez, like,
because you say the FIFA of cycling, is there a global regulatory body then, as
It is.
opposed to
Yes.
countrywide?
So there is countrywide and in a global one. So the global one is the UCI, so that's WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, and then within Cycling South Africa, which is the local one, it's SAID, so the South African
Because
Institute
it's
of
just so
Doping
would
Sports.
you fall under South Africa?
When I'm in
first?
South Africa, they will test me, but throughout when I'm throughout the rest of the
Okay, I
season, it'll
see.
be UCI.
So it's actually quite interesting how they've seriously clamped
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
on
yeah, they
doping.
must.
Like, that is insane.
but do you think doping makes that much of a difference that they have to?
I do. I mean, I think things from EPO, so that's where you increase your blood count, you increase the oxygen in your blood. What that does for recovery and just being able to push yourself to testosterone, human growth hormone, things like
Yeah.
that. It does wonders. I mean, guys are going to the extremes now where if you're at altitude, it also does a lot for your blood. So guys are now sleeping in oxygen simulation
I've
tents.
seen that.
I've seen
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
That's
Shit.
crazy.
And-
Is that
and
considered
But is
doping?
it cheat?
or
Yeah,
not?
is it?
depends where you are. So Italy considers that doping, the rest of the world don't. So it's also like all these technicalities and things like that. So yeah, there's lots of questions and it's a difficult time, but I think in general, the world of cycling and I think just sport in general is really well monitored and controlled now. And if you are doping, it's because you're either very desperate or because you're rich and you
Yeah, but Fraser made a very good point when we spoke about legalizing steroids in sports, and he said, and I'll never forget it. He said, some people might not want to take it to put that health risk on themselves, right? Because usually doping, even if you think about it in bodybuilding or rugby, it's actually bad for your health, right?
We forget that.
So getting it to a stage where you have to dope to compete with people would just make it bad for the people that don't want to dope,
Yeah,
you
it's
know-
sort of like, because we were saying, like,
Yeah.
if we legalize steroids or whatever it is in any sport, there will still be people that'll be like, fuck, I'm not
I'm not
take
gonna
it.
do this
It's
to damage
gonna
my
be
body, yeah.
damaging. But it's just like how you say they sleep in these thermal tents. How the fuck do you regulate everything?
Yeah, you
I mean,
can't.
it must be insane because there's just so many sneaky ass. You're just sleeping in a different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people get creative with it, bro.
Yeah,
They're always
exactly.
coming up with new ways to try and like kind of cheat the system and stuff.
You
know?
just sort of
So-
be like, that was creative. You could take it.
Yeah, good on you. Good on you. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I think it's also, not just the personal dilemma of, I don't want to take it because I don't want to cheat, but it's also, if me and Fraser tomorrow took the same dosage of steroids and we did the same workout for 6 weeks, we might not have same
Results, yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And that also kind of, so again, there's a discussion of just allow it and, let's just see what people are actually capable of.
That is crazy, yeah.
But
What do you personally think, though?
I don't think it's fair. I think also in certain sports, I'm very anti drugging and doping to enhance performance. But I think to do it in bodybuilding versus cycling is very different. I think bodybuilding, it's not that it's safe, but it's understandable. But in cycling, you're pushing your heart. I've done 5 hours where my heart rate sat at an average of 180 for 5 hours.
That's good.
If you've
great.
got something in your system, you're gonna have heart attacks. And I've been in a race like where people have died from crashes, but people have had a heart attack and died on the spot, or they've died mid-40s. Healthy as anything.
I can assume
Fuck
that's
that.
probably more common than people dying from crashes.
Yeah,
from heart
100%.
attacks.
and getting cancers and all these kind of diseases that have been kind of sprung on from performance enhancing drugs in like maybe mid-30s to early
Holy
40s.
hell!
That is crazy,
Yeah.
bro.
So I'll stay away from that for now.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. That was quite interesting. Holy shit, bro. Okay, we're back. So we're going to move into the second half of the podcast now.
After which we'll be talking about abortion, racism, and pedophilia should be illegal. Legal.
Jeez, like it, bro.
That's what you said off camera.
Yeah, so we're basically going to start speaking about, I think you just said he's your teammate, Dlamini.
Yeah, Nick Lamini.
His full name, sorry, I don't know.
Nicholas Dlamini. South African cyclist from Cape Town, rides for NTT as well.
Yeah, so he had quite an unfortunate event last year. It was last year, 2019.
End of last year, yeah.
End of last year, where...
December.
Yeah, you probably know the facts better than us, so maybe just kick it off and tell us what happened exactly there.
He was just doing a training ride in Cape Town, going up Table Mountain, and he went into a nature park. And police rangers rode him off the road. There was a question if he had like the legal permit to ride there. And, without asking any questions, they rode him off the road, basically almost making him crash. And then apprehended him, and in the struggle, they broke his arm, put him in the back of a van, and just kind of no regard for
his
law.
career or
He didn't
anything.
resist or anything.
Not at all. He just said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I'm
There was
sorry."
a video, yeah.
Yeah, there was a video, and you can actually hear in the video his arm breaking.
I actually watched that video. I remember last year. I ended
What's
up.
the deal with the permit then? What?
So, in all parks like this, Suikerbosch Run to Game Reserve is the same thing. Where you can freely run and walk and cycle in there, but you need a permit. It can be like a monthly permit or yearly permit or even just a day pass. And it's quite a bit of a grey area whether he had one or not.
Yeah. It doesn't
But
matter.
nonetheless, you don't.
That brutality is just
How the hell did
ridiculous.
they break his arm?
They grab. So he was off the bike and
Must
they
be
Yeah.
behind their back, yeah.
They try
had
to,
behind
if
the
you watch the video, they try to like get his arms behind his back, and then as he pulled it, bro, you just hear this fucking snap, bro. It's scary.
Yes. So on that it's sort of like serious fucking brutality by, they're not even law enforcement officers. They
Yeah, like
they're
essentially,
rangers.
yeah.
Security guard.
Yeah, but we've obviously had a lot of that.
Hot
People
topic at the
using
moment, yeah.
excessive force, and one that's just happened recently is George Floyd in America.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's-
devastating. That video killed me, bro. I won't lie. To
I
watch
didn't
that
even
video,
finish that video. I could not finish that video.
Yeah, it was a tough watch.
it was fucking difficult, bro.
But at the same time, I like the uproar.
I'm so
and the
happy,
backing
bro.
about it.
I was like, fucking burn that building down, bro. I was like, go for it.
What is it? What the hell is going on?
So-
basically, why
So,
is that happening?
so let me. I went into a deep dive in this topic, bro. Because when I saw that video, it fucking outraged me, bro. So what happened was obviously he tried to cash a check, right, and then the check bounced. Then they suspected forgery. Then the police came, tried to arrest him, and if you see the new footage that has come out, they pull him out of his car like he's not resisting arrest at all. Like he's a
So
big
he's in
guy.
his car and they pulled him out.
Yeah. And then they eventually take him to the police car, and then eventually you don't see the footage because there's a missing bit. And then next thing he's on the floor, and then it's that 10-minute video that you see.
So what the hell happened? How did it get from?
Because it's like a corner. It's like on a corner. So it's like on a corner, and his car was parked here, and they take him out of his car, and the police car is parked on the other side
Yeah,
of
but
the
how
corner.
did it get to the situation where a cop is on his neck?
Yeah, so no one knows that part yet. There's been footage from this side of the corner and this side of the corner, but when they take him around to when he gets on his
between.
Yeah.
there's no footage. Yeah.
So when I say what is going on, I mean that there's a sort of trend of police brutality on black men, and I know some of the situations I have personally thought I've been like there has been situations of resisting. However, the force has been excessive in each occasion. But this one, and obviously a lot of other ones,
Yeah, he was
seems like it's
unarmed.
completely unjustified
Yeah,
whatsoever.
Yeah.
if you look at the facts, he was unarmed. He was already handcuffed. He was on the floor. There were 4 policemen, 1 person. It was just all outweighed against him. And at the end of the day, he died. But going back to the riots that came after this, they keep quoting this one Martin Luther King quote that keeps saying if you're not going to let us in the house, we're going to burn the house down. It's loosely something like that. And that's why they went and rioted towards the police station and burnt the police station down. If you see what they did to the cop cars and everything. And it's what I related back to is sort of like the whole gender violence in South Africa, where it just got too much that you had to fucking do something about it. It's gotten to the point where it's fucking overboard now. You need to do something. And I think that's the point they're at. Think about it.
Yeah.
There's that other famous case, bro. Michael B. Jordan played him in that movie even. But that was the first time when it really outraged the public. I'll get his name now, actually.
Well, I mean,
And it was the exact same situation, but they put him in a chokehold. They put him in a chokehold,
you're talking
and it was
about-
in the train station. And that was the first time it ever happened. And this is like 10 years ago. So this is 10 years later and the same situations happen. So there's been no change. And I think that's why people are fucking
But I
angry.
also saw an interesting tweet. As I said, I'm hot on Twitter right now.
Yeah.
There was a tweet that said, what do you want us to do? Because remember, Colin Kaepernick took a knee in the football. They're like, okay, so we do a silent protest. We get nowhere. So we sort of have to
take it into our own hands and do something.
Yeah, but on the same hand, unfortunately, like I disagree in the sense where they're looting businesses that are completely unrelated. I kind of do agree with the rioting and burning the
uproar. Like I understand that they're so angry that they need to express themselves in that way, but you're gonna have bad eggs in any bunch. You're gonna have bad eggs in the cops, bro. Like, that are the ones that are gonna kill people, bro. They're gonna be the bad eggs. And part of a riot, they are gonna be. If you look at the vast differences between the civil rights movement with Martin Luther King and what's the other guy's name? I Had a Dream.
That's Martin Luther King.
No, Martin Luther King was wild, bro. So Malcolm X. Sorry. So Malcolm X was the more violent approach to the civil rights movement, and Martin Luther King was very peaceful protests, right? So if you look at any sort of protest, even in South Africa, you'll see we have people like Steve Biko. He was quite radical. He still said, like, listen, he actually had a brilliant quote, bro. He had a quote where he was in court, and the judge asked him, like shortly before his death, the judge asked him, he said, listen, how can there be confrontation without violence? And he said, me and you, judge, we're confronting in this situation right now, but there's no violence. We don't have we're not fighting each other, but we're disagreeing on this point. So it just depends on the protesters, which I'm trying to get at. Like, what is your mindset going into this? Do you want to be violent and try to get your point across that way, the Malcolm X way, or the Martin Luther King way of where they would sit on the bus and just do nothing, or silent protest and go and sit in a building where you're not allowed to be. But I think that's way back. Like now at the moment, what is the point of cops being more violent towards black people? Because we spoke about it briefly off this. There's a bunch of pranksters on YouTube they're all white, and they went and drank beer in front of police, like they literally, it was non-alcoholic, but it looks like beer, it looks like you're committing a crime. And the policeman approached them in such a peaceful and, understanding manner. But we said, imagine they were black now and they did the same thing. Do you think they would have got the same response?
Look, I don't think we can like speculate on the actual cop, the actual individual cop, because we don't know. Because obviously, like you said, there's bad eggs everywhere you go. So like in that instance, that could have been a good cop. So it wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah. Whether it was black or white, sure.
So I guess we can't really say that. But I mean, just regardless, there's been a trend.
There's a pattern of it.
There's a pattern, and it's unacceptable. And I like that people have taken a stand now.
Yeah.
In order to change things.
Yeah, so I think, honestly, because of the protests and the riots, he's only been arrested. I don't think he would have been arrested if there wasn't such an uproar.
I think they would have tried to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, exactly. So he's been arrested, and I see his wife has filed for divorce.
Yeah.
So he's not having a great day.
Okay, but other than that, other than affecting his personal life, what are they going to what's the end game? I agree that there needs to be awareness, but what is going to change?
How are they going to change everyone's mindset?
This happens every year.
Yeah, what's stopping the next one?
What is stopping the next one? What is going to be put in place? And I agree with what you've said, both like in that you can't blame the police force. And I even see Lil Wayne, like he was outspoken saying that you can't blame the force and it's not just the police. It is a recurring event, but it is certain bad eggs, but again, what is this outcry and this awareness gonna actually do? What I
always find myself thinking about that as well. When something bad happens, I'm the type of person I don't like to like ponder on it and think this is such a bad thing. I like to think how are we going to fix it, but fixing something like that it's not like an easy way to do it. You can train them and be like, listen, there's better techniques to arrest someone than putting your neck on your knee on their neck, maybe.
Like institutionalized racism and racist.
Dude, they've been trying to fix racism for thousands of years. Yeah.
But hopefully, in this instance, this is like they're making a point out of this. The specific situation, so that going forward, it's not going to be acceptable.
But it makes things very difficult as well. Just on a kind of separate note, that cops are going to be so shit scared now in instances of a black individual in case something like that does.
Here's my rebuttal though. they don't have to be scared. Just fucking take your knee off after 1 minute at least, bro. Not 5 minutes.
It doesn't make sense.
That video,
sense,
like,
exactly.
just it's ridiculous, bro. Like, that's way too excessive. Understand, dude, if he was struggling or something was going on and you had to like try pin him down for like the first 30 seconds, but once you got him down and there's 4 of you and
the dude
take your knee off, like, it's fucked, bro. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, bro. So that, I don't think you can fix people like that. It's like saying, how are you going to fix school shootings? These kids are going to get fucking angry and they're going to go and shoot people, bro.
Like, so does it come down to the individual? It's individual. So
it's like individual basis.
There's bad eggs in each group.
Yeah,
it's bad eggs on the police force that are doing.
Because the problem is you can't see when the situation is going to happen, right? A cop could be driving right now in America somewhere, spot something and try arrest this guy, and next thing he's killed him, right? You can't foresee that this event's going to happen, so you can't stop it before it happens.
Yeah,
it's how they handle the events. I think
also how they're thinking prior. If that cop must have been thinking.
That cop came out with photos, where he had photos of a cap saying "Make whites great again" and stuff like that.
Really?
There was previous like photos of this guy, that exact cop.
So there was definitely intent to do harm. He was not detaining this guy just willy-nilly.
And that's important because, in my mind, you think, as a police officer, you're not sure if this individual might be harboring a weapon or, you're looking at your own best interest at the same time, But again, going to that extent, it's clearly a trend and it's
and you can see from this guy's past history that he definitely was a bit of a racist, bro,
But so that'll all go back down to how do we fix racism, which
is an age-old question.
Age-old question, especially here in South Africa. We know how effective that is. But on that same note, with that George Floyd, we've just had in South Africa Mr. Khosa, who was killed by the South African National Defence Force. So he was drinking beer. We had an open thing of alcohol in his own yard, and he ended up the army came in, and I think police ended up joining as well, and he actually got beaten to death by these soldiers. So the pathologist revealed that like his cause of death, I think I could be wrong, it was from the beating, but it was like blunt force trauma or you can
that's crazy,
from the beating that he got was his cause of death. And now why is the uproar? Because we've got a whole bunch of South Africans, as you should be, uproaring or being angry about George Floyd. Where's the same energy for Khosa?
Because I think people are rallying behind the underlying problem of racism, right? That a lot of people can relate to and they've been through,
Correct, yeah.
Where in the Khosa case, I don't know why, but there's not that racism problem there.
Yeah, so people more of a we can do this.
Yeah.
Abuse of power.
It's abuse of power.
Whereas the other situation is more of a racist.
So sort of, I guess
situation.
it's more like because the racism issue's been around for so long, it kind of deserves more attention.
I don't say anything deserves more or less. I'm just saying,
both are just as
bad.
Because abuse of power is so common in South Africa.
I know, and dude, that's fucking terrifying that they came to this guy's own fucking yard and killed him, bro. Like, that's fucking disgusting. But the problem is though that people can't relate to it. You know what I'm saying? It's not a problem that people can relate to. Yeah. When was the last time you sat in your yard and got beaten by the police force?
It's more of an isolated
incident. But if someone
not necessarily isolated, I don't think.
But remember how many people in South Africa and globally can relate to being
yes, of course,
felt the feeling of racism.
I agree with you guys fully. That's why the attention's there. But I mean, just how bad this Khosa matter was first the army found that they obviously said, these guys,
it's horrific.
Provocation
this
or whatever,
horrific,
there's
bro.
no liability. They actually got taken to court. I tweeted it, the judgments. This Judge Fabricius was the most scathing judgment against the South African National Defence Force, and it was brilliant. And they had to report back to the court with certain things within 5 days, within 7 days, and all of this stuff. And one of the orders was that they had to conduct a proper investigation in the 4 soldiers that were involved in this implication. And they came back and they found that no, these soldiers did not cause the death. They had some dodgy ass pathologist deposed to an affidavit saying that this is what he found. Although he didn't say it didn't cause the death, he said he sort of said that the actual pathologist that was used by the lawyers and stuff wasn't exactly correct. But now they've come back to the court and said, no, we're not suspending anyone, or they were ordered to be suspended by the court, but we're not taking any more procedures against them. They're innocent. he provocated them, and he said he did gender inequality. Apparently there were 2 female soldiers, and he did something to do with gender inequality, and as a result he got bashed in by cop guns, and
he was murdered.
He was fucking murdered. And now I just think it's a bit off topic comparing the two, but it's what now? I mean, do they just is that it?
But that just begs the question, like in South Africa, as a result of our systems in terms of from the corruption to the amount of murders and things that happen, have we become like desensitized?
We're normalized to it, bro.
To all of this stuff, and that's why there's not like as much of an uproar about it.
And you know what will help it is that if there's an uproar for every single
that's what there needs to be.
Because it's so common. You hear there's 57 murders a day. You're like, okay,
it's a casual day in South Africa.
And I think for all cases, you know, everything, whether it be racism, black on white, white on black, Indian on colored, pink on black, like racism, all these police brutality in itself, you know, we should stop only rallying behind these big ideas of like, you know, like racism. Like you're saying, it's sad now that this Colin Khosa died and no one's rallied behind it just because there wasn't something to relate to.
Been rallying behind. There definitely has been, but not
as big.
Nowhere near as big as that.
Yeah, it is quite interesting, but for me, I want to lean more towards like, because that sort of also takes away to the point of like not having your rights. And I mentioned this a bit before, but like, how do you guys feel with your rights being meddled with in this time? You know, like, are you feeling affected? Because mostly it is the smokers and the drinkers that have, and your rights, so your freedom of movement and that kind of thing. You know.
No, I feel very like I want to be outspoken during this time because I've agreed with the lockdown, all that stuff. But when it comes to, because obviously in the Constitution, your rights can be limited provided it's within certain grounds. And if we had to do a lockdown to save everyone's lives, it's
understandable.
But we're at a stage now where the Constitution has been thrown out the fucking window. No one gives a shit. And I think there are personal agendas going on within our
left, right, and
government,
center,
to be honest. And I mean, let's talk about the main issue. And people could say, oh, it's a sort of for privileged people. They bitch about smoking.
Yeah.
It's not that. I mean, we have a problem with everything that's going on in South Africa, but because this is so wrong, we are more than entitled to speak out about it. Is obviously the smoking.
Yeah.
And there's just no basis for it.
It's just so blatantly clear as well that there's a hidden agenda.
But that's scary because they're allowed to basically just be so obvious with it, there's no consequences to it.
And no one can do anything about it.
And that can link straight back to the previous topic about, you know, abuse of power.
Yeah,
and there's nothing that's going to be done about it, you know, and maybe we're going to slap on the wrist, maybe we get suspended with no pay, but, you know, I'm going to just make a lot of money off illegal cigarette sales or kill a man and I'm going to get away with it.
There are no consequences. One of the big things that it irritates me, but it's how things work. Like if you do sue the states, so if you end up suing Dlamini for the cigarette issue and you end up suing the states and you win and you get a cost order, that money comes from taxpayers' money to pay.
Anyway,
There's no personal orders.
Yeah.
So there needs to be
direct implications.
They are acting in their own capacity. They're not acting on behalf of the state.
Yeah.
So they should be held personally liable, but it's so difficult because people are going to be scared to, I don't know, change ideas in the government and all of that stuff in case they be held personally liable.
Yeah.
But what the hell do you do? I mean, there's going to be nothing that comes
I'll
from
tell
this.
you one thing though. If they did this in America, they would have fucking had a big revolution. I'm telling you now. Imagine, have you heard
cigarettes
banning, taking people's rights away, dude?
It wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
It wouldn't.
Americans would have lost their shit, dude. They are so
done, though?
Dude, speak about taking their guns away. They'll fucking shoot you before you do it, you know?
Yeah.
To them, their rights are so important. And
but how do they implement their grievances? Is it through protesting? Is it through court actions? Because like we've resorted to court actions.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they literally, Fray, I think they will get to a point where they will be like, I'm going to the shops, I'm getting a fucking cigarette, and, you know, because it's those small things, and they always scale it up. They're like, if you can take away my cigarettes, what else can you take away? Yeah. Because then we get to the bigger issue of, imagine they start taking away land. Imagine they start taking away this. Imagine they start taking away that. And it's a very tricky and hot topic that you slowly treading on for me, you know? It's like,
that's really sort of leading to it's sort of like a communist state.
Yeah, it is quite.
They want to say, this is what you're allowed to do. This is when you can do it. And
totalitarian state, bro. And it's
so I don't know, it's a bit of a conspiracy theory, but they've sort of used this coronavirus as like a guise to making all the changes that they wanted to do. And also, let's be honest, that all the money that's gone in, there's been no overseeing bodies over this 500 billion rand that's been used to bail people out. But by using the crisis as an excuse. There's no time to get these institutions in place to oversee everything, and I think personally that money's been ciphered.
So for someone that's staying in overseas now, the EU, how have you seen things work differently there compared to how it works in South Africa?
I mean, every country has its problems.
Always,
and again, everyone always thinks the grass is always green on the other side, which is not the case. But things, in my experience from, I've lived in certain places for extended periods of time, and the difference is that you aren't afraid of the police. Every time I drive down the road and I see a cop car, I've done nothing wrong, I'm an innocent, civilian, and you almost hold your breath and you're like, is there a chance I'm going to get pulled over? Are they going to threaten me? Are they going to, try and get a bribe out of me? Are they going to fabricate something that's wrong with my vehicle? Or, and that, just living in that fear where I've lived in Europe, that's not the case. You see, a policeman.
It's sort of relieving when you see a policeman.
100%. We obviously live in a state of constant paranoia here.
You're in constant fear, and that doesn't exist over there. And I think, if you can't trust in your police force, you can't trust in your government, then who do you trust in? And that's what's very, very sad, where it's not the case. And I think that's the ultimate difference.
I know in England, most police officers only have a baton. Even they don't even have a gun. Yeah. So in London, most of the police officers
criminalized weapons completely in England, haven't they?
Yeah, well, they obviously still have weapons in certain
Well, I'm talking about legal weapons.
The public.
Can you sell weapons in the public? I mean, guns.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But I don't really.
But remember, at the end of the day, though, most police force have guns because they have the right to protect and serve. So for them to even give their police force just like a baton in case something goes wrong, it shows you that they take this kind of stuff maybe more seriously and they're more ahead of time.
When last was there a shooting in England?
Yeah, it's more like terrorist attacks. And that's
very different.
That's a fucking sword in the last one.
Dude, that's exactly my point.
Shots.
Yeah, so I think some police officers, that's what I'm saying, but if you walk in London, most police officers don't have guns. They have like spray and a baton, bro.
Yeah, because
it gets the illegal guns out there, bro.
Exactly,
a cop's gun or he sells it.
Yeah, but not just that. At the end of the day, my notion is always that even if a kid, and I always take it back to a kid in America, goes to a fucking school with a knife, he's going to kill a shitload less people with a gun than he can with a gun. Right? A gun you can just fire off, poof, 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 it's death, death, death. Bro, imagine they walk into a class, there's 6 rugby players, 4 fucking wrestlers, and wada, and he comes with a knife. He might stab the first person, but you could pick up a chair.
What are you saying? Make guns illegal.
I'm not saying make it illegal, but I'm just saying make it more difficult, and it's
too easily accessible.
It's too easy,
America, yes. But South Africa, the gun problem is not from legal sales.
It's illegal sales, yeah.
But yes, in America, completely. Geez, we could have a whole topic.
On that. Yeah.
I mean, have you watched Bowling for Columbine?
Yeah, I think I've watched
a documentary from Michael Moore. It was after the Columbine shooting.
Yeah,
and he just showed how fucking easy it was to get
a gun. It's ridiculous.
It's like an assault rifle that he got, bro.
And it was probably from Walmart.
Yeah, 17-year-old kid with an assault rifle. Yeah.
No, so it is scary, but like at the end of the day, I'm saying to even have your police force, right? We're speaking about like police brutality and stuff. The police could also do less damage to citizens if they only have a baton.
They don't have the means.
Yeah. But then you can always say, what if this guy has a black market gun and the policeman only has a baton? Then
that would never work because you
have too many black market guns.
Guns.
Yeah.
You can't like throw your baton and be like, shit.
Yeah. No, it is a tough situation, bro. And I fucking wish we could go back in time and just never invent guns, bro. That would be fucking brilliant. But sword fighting was much cooler as well to watch, bro.
Exactly. Like I would watch a duel. Duel. You're like, yeah. I mean, we've spoken about all this stuff. Do we have any ideas of solutions or anything? Like
mine would be fucking like
now.
Just
can you
destroy all guns, bro? Like if you could, bro.
Okay, destroy all guns, but that like George Floyd.
That wasn't even a gun. That was just force. That's so scary, bro.
Yeah, it's going to be raining down the street with cannons next.
At the end of the day, then maybe it goes back to what you learn and how you brought up at the end of the day. If you think about it, because racism isn't born, it's taught, bro.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
And maybe you just, I don't know, dude. I don't even know what to say. You can't fix it. You can't fucking fix it. I'm so pessimistic right now, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's your direct. It's going to be your family, your friends, and I guess society that you are involved with that is going to make you lean in a certain direction. And we can't go on camera and be like, "Hey, everyone, just stop hating one another."
Yeah, it doesn't quite
Especially
work
in
like
this
that.
country,
does it?
But then again, though, I also watched this other documentary the other day, bro, which was fucking interesting. It said we as humans, we love fucking instant gratification, right? And we always strive for the best thing as soon as possible. And he said, what we do forget is how far we've come over the last 100 years. He's like, if you look at the total deaths per year, when it was like World War II and how crazy times were just before then, compared to now.
There's also wars, though.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, Fray, it's still you're living in a society where there's threats everywhere,
But
right?
you think we're getting
He's saying
better?
like we're getting, he said, look at the deaths now. If you compare the amount of deaths a year, it was ridiculous, Fray. It was like a drop by like 50 to 60%.
But let's look at, say, 2015 to 2020. Are we still improving year by year? Like, are we going to get better by
I think it's
2020,
gradually,
or
but
is
remember,
it-
that's what I'm saying. As humans, we want instant gratification. So if we don't see a big change by year, but we look over at 100 years, then we see how big the change actually comes.
Okay, but
So-
now put us in a World War III situation.
I think we're pretty good here in South Africa, bro, to be honest
We'll
with
be
you.
good here.
I'll be quite
But
happy in South
the
Africa.
death
The death
will be
rates.
way,
No, it will be way
more
worse.
than
Yeah,
any
yeah.
World War, because you can drop one bomb and
Yeah,
fucking
but
blow up.
luckily it hasn't happened, bro. When was the last time?
almost did it.
Dude, but Donald's a fucking
It's touch
idiot,
and
dude.
go.
That guy probably couldn't even touch the button correctly, bro. Are you, if you were really fighting the World War III, like you're saying you are now, you'd build
I'm
a
not
bunker.
fighting in World War III.
Exactly, because
The
we're
population
living in
was
a lot more peaceful state than it was 100 years ago.
I
For
would
that
not
exact
be
reason.
too scared about World War III based on the fact that I'm in South Africa.
Dude,
If
South
I was
Africa,
sitting in fucking America and World War III happened, I would cuck my pants, bro.
bro, the way we are so tired of China and everything now, we are definitely going to try to back them if a fucking war breaks out, bro.
No one wants us to go and help out.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
fuck, you guys are useless, bro.
No, we're part of BRICS, bro. We need China, and also our army deployment was just a money laundering front as well. But that's for my Twitter.
That's where Twitter thing is. But yeah, I think we can wrap it up there. That was quite deep, the last part, but anyone want to say anything on closing?
Give us your comments on how to end institutionalized racism. And,
give
if
us
you have an
some-
idea, send it straight to
Give us
the
some
US.
solutions,
Yeah. But yeah,
Thank
then
you
again,
for
thank
joining
you for
us,
coming on, Ryan.
Do you
Thanks for
have
having me.
any social media? You said you've sort of deleted everything. I don't know, for people.
So if people want to follow you and just find out who you are and
I'm
Follow
keep
your
track of
journey.
everything.
very
Yeah.
quiet on social media, but yeah, just type in Ryan Gibbons somewhere. I'm sure you'll find me.
Yeah.
Give them a Yelp review.
Otherwise, you can just watch him on the Tour de France next year.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be
And on
brilliant.
LinkedIn as well. If you
LinkedIn.
If anyone's hiring.
That's hilarious. But yeah, that was such a great session.
Thanks,
Alex.
guys.
Thanks.